Alright, I've got most of the Lego pieces glued up and they're ready for the next step. Let me show you kind of how I designed this. The way I've set this up is this bottom piece has a recessed portion in the middle which fits this piece of maple in there to give the body just some extra strength. But it's still going to stay isolated in the center of the Lego, so you won't be able to see much of it. And then this piece is going to sit in there like so. And finally this piece is going to cap it all off and be the top. Got the last piece glued on and a piece of MDF to press it down, and I'll come back to it tomorrow. So on this neck, I'm gonna try something different and make it with an angled headstock. So at some point I will chop this blank around here at an angle, and then I'll flip that over, and that will give me an angled headstock. And there's a reason I'm doing an angled headstock, which I'll get to later in the video. I'm also gonna make an epoxy fretboard for this guitar. So I'm gonna take this maple plug and cover this truss rod cavity, and then I can get started on that fretboard. So for the angled headstock, this is basically what it will look like once I glue it up. And as long as you get a good bond on both surfaces, it ends up being super strong. Alright, so I've got the top side here sealed with epoxy. It's ready to go. And I've got a little tape dam that I've set up. So this is just tape. I would use some plexiglass if I had some, but I don't, so this will just have to work for now. So this is a good opportunity to mention that this is going to be a base. So right now I'm just freehanding a base design on here, and I cover it with masking tape just to make it easier to draw and erase on. And next I will get this thing cut out. So the reason I'm doing an angled headstock is because I want a flat surface to place a Lego veneer. I've set up this little box around this sheet of Legos, and now I'm going to flood this entire thing in epoxy. I've got this whole piece casted in resin. Now I'm going to take this side and plane it down until the Legos are opened up. And then I can fill that side with epoxy, and then this side will end up being the face of the veneer. Now that I've got these Legos opened up, I can fill them in with epoxy, and then I'll have a whole solid piece that I can thin down to a veneer, and then I will attach that to the headstock. For the tuner holes, I typically just use a Forstner bit, but being that these are base tuners, they're kind of an odd size. I think they're 9/16, and I couldn't find a Forstner bit that size locally, so I'm just taking this round file and making them large enough. So I just got done doing a test string up on the neck, and with no tension it's pretty flat, which is a good thing, but with string tension it becomes concave, which is not good. So I'm going to try adjusting the truss rod here to give it a bit of a convex bow, which then the string tension should counteract and make the neck relatively flat. I am a little bit nervous about doing this just because it's an epoxy fretboard and I'm not totally sure how it's going to react to bending. So just gonna start off with a quarter turn here and see how it does. And we'll try another quarter turn. And that's looking pretty good. Everything's still in one piece, looks good to go, and everything should be set to get all assembled now. So that's my attempt at slapping the bass. If you followed me along my builds, you'll know that I don't know how to play bass, but when I build them, of course, I'll try and play them at the end. I've played guitar for most of my life, but playing bass is kind of a completely foreign concept to me. So if you are a bassist, it's probably going to be pretty hard to watch me play, but you know, it is what it is. As for the guitar or bass, I know a lot of people say it's just called a bass, not a bass guitar, but to me it's also a guitar. Anyways, you're probably wondering where the pickup is, and I decided to go with a piezo pickup under the bridge so that I could leave this entire middle portion open and show off the Lego design. Of course, this compromises some tone, but I build these guitars as an artistic piece more than I do for the tone of the instrument. I'm not going to say this thing sounds great, but it does make noise when it's plugged into an amp, so I'm cool with it. There are a couple of different ways I could have gone about this build. I could have poured epoxy into the entire thing so that each layer of Legos was filled with epoxy, and it would have made the entire body more solid. Or I could have filled in just these edges with epoxy to make them smooth. But I wanted to keep the weight down on this, which it is. It turned out to weigh only just over 7 pounds, which is perfect for weight. Also, I'd rather not use epoxy where I don't have to. And on this build, the Legos sand and polish really well, and once they're super glued together, each sheet of Legos becomes pretty strong. I still did add a piece of maple in the middle of it just to give it more strength. With as much string tension as a bass has, it was kind of a no-brainer for me to put some wood into it just to give it that extra strength that it needs. And you can really only see the wood up here in this part of the guitar, so it doesn't really ruin the aesthetics of it. This is my second epoxy fretboard I've done, but the first with a truss rod under it. My pencil neck doesn't have a truss rod, but this fretboard came out really well and it feels super good, so I might have some more experimenting with this style coming in the future. The Lego headstock took a lot of work to make, but it turned out looking awesome, so I'm glad I took the extra time to make that. I'm going to get to the demo here. As I mentioned earlier, my bass playing is very limited, extremely limited, as in I don't know how to play bass. I kind of play it more like a guitar. So I'm just going to make a bass loop here and I'll play one of my other guitars over it. As always, you can follow me on Instagram @BrillsArt. You can also purchase one of my shirts on my website, brillsart.com.